If you're watching this, then the Foundation still hasn't stopped me. There are files the Foundation releases because they're confident the truth sounds unbelievable, and then there are files they lock away because the truth is too ordinary. Tonight isn't about something cosmic. No gods, no reality-ending anomalies, just biology and greed. SCP-939 is publicly described as a hostile species of predatory organisms capable of mimicking human speech. Most people know them as the voice mimics, creatures that lure prey by crying for help in dark hallways. That's the version you're allowed to know. What you're not supposed to know is why they're still alive at all. My name is Dr. Marcus Zane, former head of security, former head of research, and apparently still in possession of clearance I was never officially stripped of. For the past 2 months, I've been accessing Biological Containment Area 12. Quietly, no alerts, no flags. Someone forgot to close a door and I walked through it. Tonight, I'm opening the files they buried. This is SCP-939. Let's start with what's on the wiki. SCP-939 is a species of large quadrupedal organisms. No eyes, no external ears, no visible nostrils. Their skin is red, semi-translucent, and highly vascularized. Internally, they possess a complex respiratory system that allows them to metabolize oxygen extremely efficiently. They are obligate carnivores, human carnivores. But here's the part that made them famous. SCP-939 can perfectly mimic human speech. Not just words, tone, cadence, emotion, panic, fear, familiarity. Recordings show them using phrases like, "Is someone there? Help me. I'm hurt. Please, I can't see." They don't understand those words the way we do, or so the public file claims. They simply learned that those sounds bring food closer. Containment procedures are blunt, sound-dampened chambers. White noise generators, no verbal communication within range. Armed response teams authorized to neutralize on-site during breaches. Every report frames them as animals, dangerous animals, unthinking predators. That framing is important because it makes everything else easier to justify. What the public file glosses over is intelligence, not tool use intelligence, not civilization, but linguistic cognition. SCP-939 doesn't just mimic sounds, it understands context. In controlled tests you'll never see released, instances modified their phrasing based on response time. They adjusted emotional tone when prey hesitated. They abandoned phrases that failed. That's learning. More than that, they recognize individual humans by voice alone. They remember patterns. They anticipate behavior. And then there's this. SCP-939 instances can recognize themselves. That information is buried in an addendum that was downgraded, reclassified, and finally sealed after an ethics committee objection that went nowhere. You don't erase evidence like that unless it threatens a policy or a profit stream. Here's where I step out of the footnotes and into the room. My veil doesn't just translate language, it mediates intent. When I entered Biological Containment Area 12, I did something no one else has ever done. I spoke to SCP-939 in their modality. Not sound, not vibration, mimicry, reflection. I didn't speak first, I repeated them. Every cadence they've ever used, every cry they've ever mimicked, layered, folded back on itself. They didn't advance, they didn't vocalize. They recoiled. Not aggressively, not territorially, frightened. One instance attempted to vocalize and stopped halfway through. Another retreated into the corner of its enclosure and lowered its body posture. Predators don't do that. Intelligent beings do. When communication stabilized, they told me something no report ever recorded. They know they are being harvested. My research shows personnel at Armed Biological Containment Area 14 have been tasked with forced reproduction protocols. Pairing, environmental manipulation, nutritional control, offspring are cataloged, and then they are removed. The adults know the pattern. They know the young don't come back. They know the numbers never increase. They don't understand money, but they understand extraction. And they understand death. One instance asked me, through layered mimicry, why the small ones stop making sounds forever. There is no behavioral report prepared for that moment. There is no checkbox for answered honestly. I did what I always do when something smells wrong. I followed the paperwork. A document I came across comes from Armed Biological Containment Area 14. Different formatting, different terminology. These aren't research notes, they're logistics. Reproductive stability logs, SCP-939. The language is precise, cold, efficient, forced pairing schedules. Environmental manipulation to accelerate gestation, nutritional adjustments to increase offspring survival rates. The logs track numbers, not individuals. Pairs introduced, offspring recorded, units transferred. That last column never lists a destination, just transferred. No aging data, no mortality data, no reintegration notes. Which means whatever happens next isn't considered part of containment. It's considered output. Reading those logs is what pushed me to initiate direct communication. This reaction is briefly documented in an attached incident addendum, most of which is sealed. 2 sentences remain visible. Instances demonstrated withdrawal behavior when exposed to recursive mimicry. Vocalizations ceased entirely for 47 seconds. Predators don't go silent like that. As communication stabilized, one instance began producing a non-predatory vocal pattern. No lure phrases, no emotional manipulation, just repetition. Layered mimicry of juvenile frequencies. I cross-referenced the sound profile. Those frequencies matched offspring recorded in the reproductive stability logs, offspring that had been transferred and never returned. Buried beneath the logs is an ethics committee memorandum sealed by 05 order. Only the opening paragraph remains readable. The committee raises objections to the reproductive protocols, citing measurable indicators of psychological distress in adult SCP-939 instances. The phrase they use is rare. Evidence suggests sapient-level distress. That phrase alone should have frozen operations. The recommendation was immediate suspension pending review. The oversight response is 1 sentence long. Denied. No justification. No counterargument. Just authorization to proceed. The final documents explain why. Material transfer invoices, not research requisitions. Invoices, SCP-939 blood plasma, listed by volume. Hemoglobin variants, neural tissue substrates. The recipients aren't Foundation labs. They're shell companies. Biomedical startups with no staff. Defense contractors with no products. The blood of SCP-939 is valuable. Its oxygen binding efficiency, its adaptive neurological properties, its regenerative enzymes. On the black market, a single liter commands enormous sums. The payment routing never returns to Foundation accounts. It disappears, which means containment wasn't just authorized, it was monetized. Someone decided that SCP-939 wasn't just dangerous, they were profitable. The public file calls SCP-939 monsters. The public files paint them as monsters. But the truth is simpler. They're part of a black market supply chain. If my clearance is revoked after this, and it will be, it doesn't matter. The documents are already out. The voices have already been heard. This was SCP-939, and until next time, this has been Dr. Marcus Zane. The truth will be known.